It's always impossible to know, could we be where we're at today if we were an ESOP or if we were a different ownership structure? Maybe, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
When I look through it, I don't think we would be in the same spot as successful as we are, having a group of employees that continuously supports the growth and challenges Choice One to be better every year. That's led to us being, in the top 5 best firms in the nation to work for in our
Yeah.
industry. We wanted people to have to put some skin in the game, because we felt if it was truly going to drive a different approach and a different engagement level from employees, it had to be that they had actually written a check for that
Yeah.
share. Our belief was, if it was something you earned through tenure or something like that, it just wasn't going to come with the same commitment level to make sure that they're following that filter and doing the best things for Choice One.
All right. Welcome to this week's episode of the Freedom Experience. I'm your host, John Moncrieff. And today's episode is all about intentional growth, decision making, and the power of ownership thinking. And I couldn't have a better guest than Matt Hoying to dive into these topics with. So, Matt is the president of Choice Engineering. They're a civil engineering firm that has built its success not on just technical expertise, but on a strong cultural foundation. And Matt's leadership journey starts from being a summer intern to becoming the president of the company 20 years down the line. And that whole journey has been shaped by his belief in continuous learning and his commitment to making a positive impact. One of the things that really stood out for me in this conversation with Matt about Choice One is their decision-making filter. It's a structured approach that ensures that every single major business decision aligns with their core purpose, with their vision, and with their values. So they take every major decision that the business makes, and they run it through that filter. And I really thought that was a very unique and very novel way of approaching decision making within the business. And it's taken them from 20 employees to where they are now, which is 80 odd employees. We also explore their unique ownership model and how it evolved through that same decision-making filter, reinforcing a culture of success. And then perhaps most importantly, we talk about the difference between opportunity-driven growth and growth for the sake of growth. There's the old saying of if you're not growing, you're dying. But in a conversation with Matt, one thing that was clear is that their business is all about identifying the opportunities, filtering the decision around whether to take up that opportunity or not, or whether to explore that opportunity or not, and then to make that decision on whether to grow or invest in it. So very opportunity-driven growth as opposed to just kind of growth for growth's sake. And I think that's a lesson for many entrepreneurs, including myself, who've had to learn the hard way by pursuing growth for the sake of growth. So whether you're a business owner navigating your own leadership evolution or someone who wants to build a company that lasts, this episode is packed with insights from Matt, and you won't want to miss it. Before we dive in, just a quick favor. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, take a moment to follow the show and leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us to reach more business owners just like you and continue bringing the conversation that makes a real impact. All right, with that, let's get started. Matt, super excited. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. I love this opportunity to talk not only to you, but hopefully to share with your listeners and get a chance to hear from them as well.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, with that in mind, why don't you start off with just kind of giving us a little bit of background about Choice One Engineering and yeah.
Yeah, so Choice One Engineering, we are a civil engineering, surveying, landscape architecture firm located in Ohio. And we have 2 offices, 80 people total between those 2 offices. We were founded in 1994. I am second generation leadership in the company, not family generation, just leadership generation. And I've been president of the company since 2016 now, and have really grown up here. I started here as a summer intern in the summer of 2004 and have been here ever since.
So when we sort of got started and we're chatting, you have had this 20 years because it's 2004 now. You started as a summer intern, 20 years in. What are some of the highlights of your thinking back on your career? I guess some of the times where you've come up against big challenges and had to grow as a leader, and how have you navigated some of those?
Yeah. Thinking back and I can probably pick one or two things from each kind of phase in my time at Choice One, as an intern, as an entry level engineer. And when I go back and look and think about it, a lot of times it comes back to being willing to ask a question that, was really burning inside of me.
Yeah,
A little personal history. I have an engineering degree. I'm an engineer by trade, but that's never been my passion. It was actually a recommendation from a high school math teacher to get into people management by way of getting an engineering degree. Um, and so I've always, it's not that I don't enjoy engineering. It's just I have interest in things other than the fine details of a project.
yeah,
Helping other people out has always been something important to me. And so there was always usually just something more to what I wanted to do, rather than just sit behind the computer and do really great designs. And I'm fortunate enough, was at the time, and am still fortunate enough to be in a company whose culture fostered that. The part of the founding story of Choice One is they wanted to create a really great organization that also happened to do engineering and surveying work. So they really focused on the business leadership and the culture and um, creating that environment where someone that had those questions could ask.
so
And
was that core purpose there right from day one in terms of the business, like from the founding or the founders?
yeah, my understanding of it in talking to the previous leadership and getting to know them over the years, and they're still involved in different ways in the company, is yes, it was. We define our purpose as provide fulfilling lives for a lifetime. Um, that language wasn't necessarily, when I started in
Yeah,
2004, that language wasn't there, but that's what it was. You could feel that. That was, you could sense that when you worked here. You could feel it, by the interactions, from the leadership to a summer intern.
yeah,
Um, was that was really their core purpose, and one of the things that attracted me to not leave. You, you get a lot of pressure, at least I did, when I was at college, to try different companies. Use your summer interns and not work at the same one. And um, fortunate that Choice One is close to where I grew up, but because of that purpose, it just resonated very
yeah.
much with me and the culture. And I said, I really don't think I'm going to find a place that I can align with more. And I stayed here because of it.
So you come in, you feel like you belong in this place. And before while we were talking and we're getting started, we were talking about how 26-year-old, at 26 years old, you had to go and open a new branch, and two of you about the same age go off to open this new branch. But I kind of got the sense that you have sort of always half full kind of cup scenario. So you're always asking questions and trying to learn. How's that
Yeah.
helped you through this journey?
I think honestly, it's helped me realize that there's not one path to success,
Yeah,
right? I could look at, when I came in, the leadership of the company, in where they were at in their business cycle, their life cycle, was they were where they wanted to be. And they thought, we're going to maintain in this 20 to 25 range employees. The clients we're working with do really great work, be really great company, and just keep doing great things for the people that we are. So that was the model that I had to look for. I'd not worked anywhere else. But having that type of culture that allowed that openness to ask that question made me realize that that doesn't isn't how it always has to be. And that's where I'm fortunate to have really great leaders in front of me that were open to that as well.
yeah,
They had the foresight to look forward and say, this isn't always going to be our company. We want this company to sustain and grow and to thrive well beyond us. And just because we want to be here at 20 to 25 people doesn't mean that that's where the next generation wants to go. And um, so it's just, yeah, just having those different opportunities and seeing the how receptive the former leadership was to, let's try something new. If
Yeah.
Matt's interested in it, or if Brian's interested in,
Right.
let's try it. And um, let's run it through our filter. We're really big here at Choice One. We talk about our decision filter. What's our purpose, vision, mission, core values, our strategic priorities. If the decision, if the opportunity supports all of those things,
Okay.
then let's go for it. And you've got to have a lot of clarity around what those things are in order to be able to run, hey, should we go open a new office? We've never done this before. You've
Yeah.
got to have a lot of clarity around what your purpose, vision, mission, core values are in order to be able to say, yes, this is going to work with two 26-year-olds who have engineering degrees, who have never done this. We've never done it as a company, so we don't have the internal resources to support them from experience standpoint, right? But when you run it through that filter and it's a clear yes, then it's almost like it's going to work, or it wasn't meant to be.
Where did that decision come from? Was it something that was coming from the founders, or did it come from the employees up, or what made you decide another branch was made sense?
Um, it was honestly, we were at a business seminar, a leadership seminar, and the somebody brought up the old adage, if you're not growing, you're dying,
Yeah, okay.
right? And um, so I, being young and inexperienced, I say young and dumb, in my, where I was at that point, so I kind of challenge our current leadership, like, hey, you guys have said you don't want to grow. Does that mean that we're dying? And they help me see that no, it doesn't. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
it's two completely different cultures, but you can be successful in both of those. If you want to be really great maintaining who you are, working with the people you work with now, that doesn't mean you're dying. You can
Okay.
thrive in that environment, but it's a certain type of culture that's going to require that. That path will require a certain culture to allow that to be successful. One of
Yeah.
our one of our core values at Choice One is opportunity through learning. And so when you run this opportunity to open a new office through that filter, and you say, well, that clearly checks this core value. We're going to be able to pursue this opportunity and live this core value, for Brian and Matt. They go down and do this. Plus, it's going to help everyone else learn. No one else has done this. Like,
Yeah.
we're all going to, everybody in the company had to do something different because we were now doing this, right? So it's, it gave us it gave us that, I guess, reassurance that this is more than likely going to be successful because it fits who we are.
Gotcha. Yeah. I loved how you spoke about that when we were kind of just before we hit the record button, but those two different kind of perspectives on growth. So growth for the sake of growth. And I was guilty of that, kind of chasing 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million. And then get to a point where it's really, nobody likes being in the business. Nobody's enjoying it. It's real. And
Yeah,
the other one that you talked about, or the way you put it, was growing for opportunity. So you're very intentional. You see an opportunity, you're more intentional about pursuing that opportunity. And if I understand you, the way that you folks are filtering that is putting it through what's our kind of vision, our purpose, our core values, and does this all line up? Is this something that we should be doing or not?
right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that your growing or dying mentality has a lot of fear based
Yeah.
behind it, right? And what we're doing is we're growing for the opportunity's sake. It's almost like we're playing offense
Yeah.
instead of playing defense. Or, growing or dying feels more like you're playing defense to make sure you don't die,
Yeah.
right? We we believe that we're we wouldn't have to grow. We wouldn't die if we were growing. But here's an offensive opportunity for us that when we run it through our filter, um, we're very careful, and intentional around, again, that filter. Provide fulfilling lives for a lifetime, our vision, our mission, making lives better with enjoyable experience, our core values. None of those things have a dollar amount, a revenue amount assigned to it. We don't ever put a target out there and say we want to get to 25 million. You know,
Gotcha.
we may list that as an objective, but that's the result of the things that we want to do. We have people that want to learn a new service. And in order for them to do that, we need to go get that type of work in. And if we do that, here's what the result will be.
Yeah.
So there are numbers there, but it's never what we lead with. We never
Okay.
say, hey, in 2025 or in 2026, we're going to get to this revenue level or this profit level. We say more of, here are the opportunities that we're going to have the chance um, to take on, and hopefully we can be successful with them. And if we are, here's what we think this will look like. Um,
And that, if I'm right here, that's driven by the alignment between the employees and the business. Your employees have a lot of input into the direction of the business, I guess, as long as it goes through the filter properly. But how do you balance that? I know I've heard you talk about the sort of process that you go through, but for the listeners, I think it'd be something really interesting if you can give us a bit of
yeah,
insight into that.
yeah. So it may sound like a broken record here, Gene, but again, you put everything through that filter. And when I say everything, I mean everything. So our structure is
Yeah,
set up to support that filter. Our structure is a very flat organization structure. As president of the company, I'm in peer groups with other presidents. The things that other presidents keep on their plate or feel they have to have on their plate is sometimes exponentially the amount of things that I have on mine. Because when you have that clarity around the direction, the purpose, vision, mission, core values, the direction of your company, and you clarify that to your employees, and you can then give them the autonomy to
yeah,
to be engaged in the company, the autonomy to make decisions for themselves, but also for the company, and you can trust that they're going to make a as good, if not better, decision than I will. It's not always the same decision, and that was something I had to learn over the years. Was just because it's not what I would have done doesn't mean it's wrong. And sometimes, if really it's probably wasn't the best decision for the company, what I've found out is it's because I haven't spent enough time clarifying that filter
gotcha. Yeah,
for the employees. They were trying to do their best. They could write it out. They could word for word tell me, here's how I thought this decision supported our purpose, vision, mission, core values. And where I had a difference of opinion of them, it was like, it's because you don't understand enjoyment, which is one of our core values. You don't understand enjoyment to the way that we would like you to understand enjoyment. And that's not your fault. That's my fault.
yeah,
That's really, my biggest role is clarifying that filter, providing more and more clarity so that then I can get out of the way and
love it.
let
Yeah,
them be engaged in the company. And we have all in all employee company meetings once a month where we talk about this stuff. We have a lot of different opportunities where we bring these things up and have the chance to reinforce what we're trying to do and what we mean by this. And when everybody in the company knows that everyone else knows it and supports it and wants the company to be successful, then they actually start helping each other get better at it. Like, hey, I noticed you did this, and that's awesome. That is exactly what we mean by responsiveness, or that's exactly what we mean by making lives better with enjoyable experience. Or hey, I think you missed the mark here,
yeah.
and here. So it kind of becomes this cycle of we the visual of our cycle is define, align, and then mine or monitor,
Okay.
for ambiguity. So we
Yeah,
define it, we try to get clarity around it, and then we talk about it a lot as a company. So we align the team around it, and then we look for those opportunities to celebrate, to say, you did this really well, or here's a chance for us to learn this better as a
yeah.
group. And um, you hire our interview process is set up based on this. You start hiring people whose values align with that type of structure, that values align with the company. And it almost becomes that, you know, ball you got to get out of the way. Don't stop it. You know,
Yeah.
let the momentum keep going. And just make sure that it's going in the right direction. Every once in a while, you need, you know, a little nudge to course correct, but generally, it's my experience. It's a really cool thing when you proverbially sit back and watch what 80 people collectively can do when they all have the same um, clarity and purpose and vision and direction.
You know, when we started talking, you talked a little about being intentional and how that's an area of the business that you need to maybe be working on going forward. But it got me thinking about something I've heard you say in the past as well, where I think there was a boulder in your back garden and you used to spend time with your mom looking up at the stars at night. And I get the feeling that you you talked about just taking that time and sort of um, I guess stepping back from all the noise. And I get that feeling that part of your business sort of process is taking time and not rushing things. So when you talked about hiring, finding the right people isn't about, oh, we need to get somebody in right now. We've got a new project, a new opportunity. It's there is actually a lot of intention built into your business already.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, you know, again, I got brought in. I was lucky to be in this situation I was because the founders started the company with that intentionality in mind. And so that's been driven in, and we've seen the success of being intentional, and we've been able to look at the mishaps when we weren't intentional. You know, no one's perfect, you
Yeah,
know, right?
we make
We've all made those mistakes of, man, we really need somebody in this position. And a couple years later, when we realized it didn't work out, we could all go back and say, we knew it wasn't going to work. You know, we just in the moment felt like we needed to do something. Um, so that intentionality has been part of the culture for a long time, even to the point where our engineers, our surveyors, our production staff, like we have lower utilization goals. I mean, we sell hours, right?
yeah, yeah,
So that's utilization. Typically, is a very big thing in our industry. We want our billable people to be billable as much as they possibly can. We intentionally have lower than average goals for that because we want to make sure that our team has that time to slow down, be intentional, to think about what we're doing, and to make sure it's aligning and that we can run it through that filter. And it's going, you know, we're going to do it in a way that makes sense for choice one. Um, it's it's the reason that not everybody fits here. I
yeah,
mean, our culture is choice one's culture. It's not the right culture. It's not the, you know, and other people's cultures aren't the wrong culture, but
yeah,
it's the right culture for us. And so that intentionality about making sure that the people we bring in already align with those values and can help us enhance those values is important.
yeah. I was interested in how you are kind of looking at choice one into the future and the structure of the business. We sort of talked about employees being involved in the direction of the business, but you also have your own ownership structure that's set up, which is, as we were saying at the beginning, not quite an ESOP. It maybe leans more to a sort of co-work or cooperative type um, sort of setup where you buy employees are buying in, so you have that option.
Yeah, it's so our ownership structure it is technically an employee ownership structure, but it doesn't follow the standard ESOP regulations. It's something that we revised back in 2014. This is, you know, when the former leadership was still here.
Yeah,
I worked very closely with them, and we kind of came up with, okay, what does the future of Choice One look like, and what's going to allow us to be most successful? And we really felt like in order for us to get that true buy-in, true engagement from employees, a key part of that would be to allow them to be owners. And so we started looking at all the different options that were out there, reading books, talking to people that were a part of different ownership structures.
Yeah.
And the thing that kept kind of nagging at us was there's just there's parts of this just doesn't feel like it's choice one. And so we said, kind of went back and said, okay, if we look at those things that are important to us, and if we look at those things that are in our filter, how would we create an ownership structure? Let's just basically,
So you
but
actually applied the filter to the ownership structure as
oh
well, just
yeah,
going everything. Okay. So yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah. So
Yeah. So, I got a blank whiteboard behind me. We essentially whiteboarded this and said,
gotcha.
we don't
Okay.
know if this is legal. We don't know if you can, but if anything was possible, what would this look like? And we, we sat down and over months, almost a full year, just started drafting, next best draft,
Yeah.
and said, okay, what's this look like what do we think this looks like? Let it sit. We bring it to our external board of advisors, get their input. And we keep throwing things out that we didn't like, or we'd add things. And it ultimately came down to, if it was going to support choice one, it needed to go through that filter.
Yeah.
It we felt the employee ownership structure was a very key part to our future success. Um, so we ultimately, the thing we settled on was, if you're here for 3 years, um, it gives then you have the opportunity to buy in to ownership. The 3 year period gives us time, because like I said, we don't always get the interview process right.
Yeah.
But gives us time and gives the employee time. Hey, is this a place that I really do want to be and that our values aligned? And it gives us time to work through things in those 3 years. If we find out that, hey, maybe there's, yeah, some things that maybe I don't fully understand about choice one, or maybe we don't fully love what we see from this employee. It gives that time. But then if you're willing to, and if it's, if you've got the ability to, you can buy shares. So we wanted people to have to put some skin in the game. Because we felt if it was truly going to drive a different approach and a different engagement level from employees, it had to be that they had actually written a check for that
Yeah.
share. Um, our belief was, if it was something you earned through tenure or something like that, it just wasn't going to come with the same commitment level to make sure that they're following that filter and doing the best things for choice one. If hey, I just wrote a big check here and I want to make sure I get that return on my investment. So I'm going to,
Yeah.
I've got a little more external motivation than to make sure that we do the things that that we believe we're supposed to do here at Choice One. Um, and by creating that plan ourselves, it has given us the ability, and we have made modifications over the years. So
Yeah.
it's, as we've come across things like, hey, you know what? I didn't think about this then, but this really doesn't fit us. We need to take this part out. One example is, as president of the company, when we first kind of revised the plan in 2014, I could own a maximum percentage of the
Okay.
company. I could own 20% of the company. The other employees were on a maximum number of shares.
Okay.
So as new people bought in, their ownership percentage would go down.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
but I'd have the ability to buy more shares also and keep my percentage at 20%.
Okay.
And that you, it became clear that that wasn't going to support our filter for
Okay.
me, for me to be able to kind of separate myself from everybody else. So now um I'm on a maximum number of shares as well. I think this year I own just under 14% of the company, and every year we sell more shares, that percentage is going to continue to go down in the same rate that everyone else's percentage will go down.
So
And
ultimately, choice one, if an employee leaves the business, the shares are bought back by choice one and they stay within in the business. And then as more and more employees own the overall kind of share allocation, whether you're the president or I guess somebody who's come in for the past 3 years and a newbie owner, you all have there's no how to put it. Nobody's kind of got a chance of getting more shares than everybody else, sort of thing. There's
Right.
equal ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some nuances to the plan of because the type of business we are and our state board, we need to be owned by 51% licensed professionals. And
Gotcha.
so the those people that hold those licenses are able to own more shares than our full-time people
Yeah.
that don't have those licenses. And the people that are part-time own less shares than the people that are full-time. But yeah, they everybody knows what's their maximum number of shares that they can own if they so choose. They don't, and there's no penalty for not buying. This is being an owner of Choice One is a shareholder. It's an investment, just like if you were to buy a share of Google.
Yes.
Just we're an 80-person company. You have to be an employee to own it, and so you've got more impact on whether that share you get return on that share or not. But
Okay.
yeah, we don't. There's no. It doesn't hold you back from any professional growth opportunities within the company if you choose not to buy shares. We very intentionally separated ownership from management.
Okay. And I mean, here's the thing, I guess, for listeners is that if you're listening to this and you're thinking that ESOP is the only answer, there are different. You guys took a year. You took the whiteboard, as you said, and you kind of put it through your filter, which is, and I love how I think your core purpose is around providing fulfilling lives for a lifetime or something along
Yeah,
those lines. So you're obviously kind of starting with that and working through it. And I know enjoyment has come up, opportunity for continuous learning or opportunity through learning. So you're kind of looking at that, putting your whole ownership structure through that and saying, well, we don't know if this is legal, but let's create something that works for us and then go back and kind of make sure I suppose one of the requirements was making sure that 51% is owned by folks who are suitably certified because of state legislation.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And I should mention, just so everyone knows, we did run this past our attorneys. We did run this
yes.
past court, to make sure it was legal after, but we didn't want to start there. We, um, I'm a brainstormer. I like to just chase random ideas, and so for me, I don't like to start with um, restriction.
Yeah.
I want to whiteboard it, and I want to say, okay, let's pretend we could do this exactly the way we wanted it. What would it look like? And then let's figure out, can we do that? What guardrails do we have to play within? That sort of thing. But that is something that anytime someone asks me about our ownership structure, and that's something I try to encourage them is there's there are a ton of resources out there. There are some kind of pre-canned ownership models that you
Yeah.
can learn a lot about. And I'm
Very
not saying
quickly.
there's not saying there's anything wrong with those, but in my opinion, it's very important for that ownership structure to match to flow through your filter.
Yeah.
If you want your organization to continue to be successful into the future, maybe during your time there, even beyond your time there, it's got to flow through your filter. And for a different culture and a different filter, an ESOP may very well support that, right? I don't hate on ESOPs, or I don't hate on any of the other structures, but uh, when I first started this investigation in 2014, that's becoming an ESOP would have been the easy solution because that was the thing that was most prevalent. There was a lot of resources, there were a lot of books out there. You could read a lot about ESOPs. Um, it was harder to create a system that that went through our filter and supported what Choice One wanted. But in my opinion, and I think if you ask the other even 80 people here, much less just the 45 owners, the rewards of doing that hard work have been exponential.
Yeah.
From all measures, from impact to other people's lives. I mean, I believe, and I have stories of, being out in the community and hearing people come up to me and, find out I work at Choice One, and they say, "Oh, do you know this person? They're an owner at
Ah,
Choice
yeah,
One." And so I know people have a lot of pride around the fact that not only are they an owner, but they worked hard to be able to save money to buy shares, and now they've got a different mindset around being an owner because of that, right?
yeah.
And they have a different level of pride of Choice One because of the investment that they put in time, savings, that sort of thing, to become an owner of Choice One. Um, so I think uh, it's always impossible to know, could we be where we're at today if we were an ESOP or if we were a different ownership structure? Maybe, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
When I look through it, I don't think we would be in the same spot as successful as we are having a group of employees that continuously supports the growth and challenges Choice One to be better every year. That's led to us being, you know, in the top five best firms in the nation to work for in our
Yeah.
industry for, now 12 years running. And I believe that is led by the 80 of us, not me. As president, my role is to guide the direction, not to pull. I
Yeah.
I don't want to pull 80 people along to follow Matt Hoing's vision
Yeah.
and direction. I want to help guide 80 of us to follow a common vision, a common strategy, a common purpose and mission that we all support. Um, and that's a personal leadership style of mine, that I want to be. You know, people have kind of labeled it a servant leadership style, but you know, I want to lead them in their direction and guide them in the direction that we want to go as a company, versus hope that I can get them to support Matt Hoing's direction.
So, Matt, does that mean that the vision kind of almost becomes a living, evolving
Mhm.
thing in the business? I mean, when we look at the vision at the moment, transform our world is your top kind of vision. But I guess as the company grows and through opportunity, that vision might change or things might transform. Would that be true to say?
Yeah, very true. Our strategic plan is a dynamic document. We update that sometimes weekly. When things in the environment change that we didn't know 3 months ago when we were developing the plan, we update our strategic plan. We every year at a minimum look at our purpose, vision, mission, core values. Are these still what are serving us, and are these still the ones that we truly believe in?
So it's like kind of
It,
checking the filter on the water machine. Is
right,
this thing
yeah.
still right? Yeah, because
Right, exactly. That's a great analogy. And in this year, we actually decided that vision of transform our world wasn't providing our team enough clarity to make decisions
okay,
around. So we updated our vision, and we said that part of our vision is going to be to define grow intentionally. We want to grow intentionally. Um, and so part of our strategy this year is, how do we define those two words, grow
grow
and
intentionally.
intentional?
Yeah,
What are those things that are so important to Choice One, that whether we're 80 people or 150 or 300 people in 10 years, that we still need to be making sure that we are, doing, because we may be doing them slightly different, right? As you grow, sometimes that necessitates that.
yeah.
But in the past, we have grown, um, because we've just been following our systems, following our processes, and if that's allowed us to find good people and we bring them on, great. And um, we've grown to allow our people more opportunity, but we've never really set a target out there and said, this is who we're going to be in
Mm.
10 years, and now let's create a plan to get there. We've always kind of gotten where we got because of the things we were doing. And it's a slight change. It's a slight mindset shift. But I kind of I liken it to, again, that offense versus defense thing. We
Yeah.
In the past, we didn't want to lose what we had, so let's keep doing what we've been doing and
Yeah.
let's see where it gets us, right? And that's kind of been that's been our mentality.
And that
Now,
served you well up until now.
yeah, it served us
Yeah.
well up until now, but one of the things you realize as you do add more people is it's harder to make sure that all 80 people have the same level of clarity that 20 people did when I
Yeah.
first started, right? Because I personally don't see all 80 of those people every day, and I don't interact with them on an everyday basis. Um, so it's we're realizing how important it is to have more clarity, transform our world. You can think of a lot of different decisions or opportunities that go through that filter. Well, can that transform our world, and what does world mean? So to some people, the world means 8 billion people on this
Yeah.
planet. To some people, the world means my family.
Yeah.
My family is my world, and I just want to make sure. Um, so we said we need to provide more clarity around that. So yeah, it's very much uh, everything we're doing here. We try to run through that cycle, define it, get as much clarity around it as we can, align the team around how we're defining it and what that means, and then look for opportunities to make it better. Look
Okay.
for those opportunities where we are mining for conflict, mining for ambiguity because someone didn't understand. Well, the way I
Yeah.
define transform world is this planet. The way that she defines transform this world is her community, and the way that he defines transform this world is his family.
Yeah.
It's hard for us all three to be making the same decision then if we have three completely different decision points.
So the water's not coming out clear. We need to
Right.
change, kind of adjust the filter to
Yeah.
to get clarity. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And
Yeah.
you mentioned 10-year, so defining growth intentionally, and you mentioned 10-year. Are you starting to think about that sort of 10-year thinking now? Like Rob Duvet talks about slowing down time, and I mean I love the way you put that when I chatted to him. But is that what you're kind of looking at ahead now?
Yeah. So a couple reasons that we're talking 10 years. One, we are a company of engineers, surveyors, very analytical minded people.
Yeah.
So in the past, we've only agreed to follow a strategy if we already felt like in our mind we knew how we were going to get there.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Um, 2, 3 years out, it's easier to see that what I'm doing today, how that's going to affect
Yeah.
3 years from now. 10 years out, that's really that pushes it a little farther. So I'm trying to break that mold that even myself get in, but that the rest of us here get into of we need to know the answer before we start.
So this is where we're
You,
going to be.
right,
Kind of let's work the way back to how we're going to get there with that analytical mindset, and just
right,
kind of go back and then map out the path. And it might not be perfect, but we're moving toward where we want to be in 10 years from now.
right. Yeah. So that's 10 years for me is one, you know, I think it's just mainly to highlight that point of we've got to try to start thinking bigger. We've
Yeah.
got to accept the fact that we've got to think about the things that are really important to us, and then what is it going to look like? How are we going to try to get there? And eventually, we've got to break that 10 years down.
Yeah.
Our strategic priorities, we focus on 1 year. What's the most important thing we can do this year? Um, Hopefully, being successful in that will support that 10 years. And we do that 10 times and we'll be where we want to be 10 years
Yeah.
from now. That's that's the idea. Candidly, this is the first time we've done that.
To the
So,
whiteboard.
so we're almost 2 months into it. I can't promise it's successful, but I will say we have seen a little bit different of a mindset shift around it
Yeah.
because we've put something out there that is that far out. But yeah, it's even for me, it's hard to think about, 10 years, what do I want to be doing in 10 years? I'm going to be I'm, my kids are going to be older in 10 years. So my just different season of life.
Yeah.
All of us will be in a different season of life in
So
10 years
true.
than we are today. And so it, it makes it harder for us to just sit down and say, I know the answer.
Yeah.
I already know the answer. Okay, let's fill this out and let's just wait for that to happen. Um, this is going to make us hopefully consider it deeper, consider the pros and cons, and not just say we've got to be able to jump into an answer right away. We're going to have to work through it, leave that North Star, leave that guiding light, that's where we want to get. Um, but what we're doing today, candidly, we don't know if it's going to help us
Yeah.
get there or not. So let's not make the next best right decision and move on.
Yeah. And one of your core values is timelessness and, or yeah, timely. No, it's timeliness. Sorry, that I
Yeah,
got it wrong, but I knew there was time in there somewhere. I was trying to remember. But I mean, it feels like you're building a company with that intergenerational view. That
yeah.
this is
Well,
going to be,
that's our intent. Is we want choice one to be choice one for forever.
yeah,
I've the Evergreen company kind of mindset of 100 years from now, we still want to be choice one, doing the things that are important to choice one, and that's our ownership structure plays into that, right?
yeah,
Today I own a little less than 14% of the company. In 10 years or in 20 years or whenever, maybe in 2 years when they decide that, I'm not best for choice one anymore, for the leadership of choice one, I want to, I don't want that burden to be able to buy my shares back to be what ends, our path of choice one.
yeah,
I've seen a lot of peers in the industry get to that point where, well, I'm ready to retire and we don't have an ownership structure set up in place. And so the options then are to go sell out, be acquired by somebody else.
private equity,
Or,
strategic, whatever it's going
yeah,
to be. Yeah,
yep. Or
yeah,
close the doors,
or close the
right?
doors.
And that's, that's something that honestly, neither one of those options are super appealing to me,
Yeah,
or to choice one. And that's where I'm at today in 2025 and 2035. Maybe something's different, but we believe in trying to set things up when before there's an emotional response to the situation. When I'm 3 years from retirement, I'm going to have different mindset and thought process around what's that transition look like than
yeah,
I do when I'm 13 years or 23 years from retirement, right? And so I can think more clearly now about the company's success through that transition because my personal success through that transition is farther away.
yeah. But you're still thinking about it. You're still being intentional about both of those things and how they sort of ultimately line up,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is
It, there's a lot of things we talk about that if it's good for the company, it's going to be good for me personally. Right. I mean,
yeah,
from a financial perspective, would it be better for me to own 80% of the company right now? Maybe for the short term, but I think long term, I'm in a better, I will be in a better financial situation because we had a company of owners that were engaged in the company as opposed to me owning 80
yeah,
or 100% of the company and and having a company of employees that would come in and do their jobs really well. But we just believe that there's an extra level of engagement with that
yeah,
ownership tied to it. And when that ownership is it is seen to be closer to uh, everyone's in a similar spot in that ownership, right? I can own 180 shares. A licensed employee can own 40 shares. It's that disparity is not 20 or 30 times.
yeah.
Now there's everyone's personal success relies on the company's personal success.
And I almost think that, I mean, you hear a lot about owners selling, leaving the business, exiting, and kind of going into this depression, the loss of purpose. And I feel like the approach that you're taking and being intentional about this and thinking it through, and I know it's a long way away, but down the line, you've built a sort of family of folks who own a business, and you've been thinking this through for probably decades before you actually come to, okay, it's time to move on. And I feel like there's a deep rooting in the community. You talk about people owning parts of Choice One and having those conversations. Oh, I met so and so, they're an owner. There's almost something that kind of goes beyond just locking the doors, selling the business, closing up, walking away, that endures beyond, um, into the future, and being, because you've been intentional about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've, you know, it, as I've thought about my personal exit from Choice One at some point in the future, what am I going to walk away and feel most proud of? It's not going to be the amount of money
yeah,
that I get out of that, you know, transition. It's going to be the fact that I can look at a an amazing team that is ready to take Choice One beyond what I could personally
yeah,
take it. And, kind of conversely from that, that's the one thing that I've told my wife, I've told the people here at Choice One, like, I don't want to be the person that's holding Choice One back. And
yeah,
so my personal plan may be to retire in 2040. But if we get to 2035 and we realize that Choice One has opportunities that I don't have the knowledge, ability, interest, energy
so yeah,
to pursue, I hope that somebody comes to me and says, Matt, it's time.
yeah,
I hope that I personally realize it so that they don't have to. But,
self-awareness.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's why I'm having those conversations of,
yeah,
look, I don't want to hold Choice One back. I don't want to walk away and say, you know what, those last 4 years were great for Matt Hoing personally, but Choice One's in a worse spot because of
yeah,
it. So that's what that's one of the things that uh, one of many things that I've learned from the former president of Choice One, one of the founders, and the other founders that are still here. Their amazing ability to give up their own personal gain for the rest of our gain has made Choice One what it is today. And
yeah,
I personally believe, because I got to see that and experience it firsthand, I personally believe that that's going to be repeated in this next transition
yeah,
whenever that time is. And um, it's unless that retirement comes also with a coffin box, I hope to be able to
we hope
still,
it doesn't.
to look in and see
Yeah,
the success that
totally.
these guys, I
To see it
don't
carry on.
envision that that we're going to that we're going to separate on, hard terms. I'm going to be cheering for their success more when I'm not here, or just as much when I'm not here as I am now when I am
Yeah,
here. So yeah, it's but all of that, like all of that goes back to creating that ownership structure that supports that purpose,
yeah,
that that goes through that filter. I I'm not there yet, but like I said, I just don't know that I'd have that same mindset if we didn't spend that time to create that ownership structure that I believe and that we all here believe supports the
the
core
core
values, the
values and
vision, the
whatever.
purpose, mission.
Yeah, that filter.
Yeah,
You got time for one last quick question?
yeah.
What does freedom mean to you, Matt?
Oh, Gene, I think freedom means the ability to be able to live in the present.
Nice. Yeah,
When I think, especially in my role, right, a lot of my role is looking towards the future
yeah,
and making sure that the things that may trip us up in the future, hopefully we can address them before we get there. Um, but I also, I know people in my role who are living in so much fear because of the future that
yeah,
they can't enjoy the present. And to me, that's where freedom is. Freedom is in that spot where, not that you're not thinking about the future or not that you're not reflecting on the
yeah.
past, but that you actually can enjoy the present
Love it.
because, you know, the stresses in your life, or whatever the case may be, there's a ton of things that may keep you from being able to live in the present. Um, but To me, that's freedom.
I love it. Yeah.
There's a lot of societal pressure, I think, to ignore where you're at now
Yeah.
because you need to focus on where you're going. And as a parent, I fall into that a lot with my kids. Of I'm not I'm trying to help them be a better student, not today as a sixth grader, but because I want them to be successful in high school and in college should they pursue that. Or I'm trying to help them be better at basketball because I want them to play on the high school team. And she's a fourth grader. Like
Yeah.
I need to allow them that freedom to just be a good, just enjoy being a fourth grader, enjoy being 10 years old, and that kind of thing. And so that's freedom to me, is when your circumstances allow you to live in the present and enjoy the present.
I feel like that comes from your mom, the boulder, and looking up at the
Uh,
night sky at night and just being in the present for a bit.
yeah,
Lovely. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Gene, I love it. I can't believe the time's been up already. Every time you and I have a chance to connect and chat, it's the same. But very much appreciate the opportunity to share, and hopefully it helps one person out there. And I hope
I'm sure
people feel
many.
welcome to reach out to me, and I'm always happy to connect one on one with any of your listeners also.
And we'll put all your details in the notes. Yeah, make sure everybody's got your contact details.